Everybody, welcome back to FSi DFS, looking at the small 5-game slate here for Thursday, August 1st. We turn the calendar, just 2 more full months of MLB, a little bit of in October before the playoffs. But yeah, things are starting to wind down. The trade deadline is over, and let's just kind of dive right in here. We got the sheet we'll put up here in a couple of minutes, but starting with the top guys priced over 9K, we got Gray, Imanaga, and Lugo. I had a little bit of a tough time ranking who I wanted to put number one. I could listen to an argument that all three could be the number one. I think it's what type of format you're playing here tonight. Are you chasing the upside in tournaments? Are you chasing a little bit more of a floor situation, but a guy who doesn't really ever give you a ceiling? So Gray, up at the top here, he is the guy that's going to give you the highest ceiling. The strikeout rate for Gray is the highest. It is elite in MLB standards. So at 9.8K, I love that salary for him, for the matchup, for the strikeout rate that he has. However, he has looked really shaky over his past 5 starts or so. You can see just he's allowing 8 hits on average per game, 4 to 5 earned runs every single start. But because he is able to have this elite strikeout rate, he's able to pitch himself out of jams. So it's not horrendous in terms of like his fantasy score. So he does give you a little bit of floor with that. But he also gives you the best ceiling, because if he is not getting into these jams and he's just mowing down this Cubs lineup, which, you know, they just traded away Morel. Yeah, they got Paredes now, but I think losing Morel is a big bat. I definitely view them as sellers at the deadline. So I really like Gray here and the upside that he can bring. Lugo, he's on the opposite side of this. Lugo does not really have much of a strikeout rate. His strikeout rate is almost 10% lower than Sonny Gray's is. Very similar in terms of matchup, facing off against Detroit. And Detroit, you got to remember, they don't have Riley Green. He's been on the IL here for a little bit, and that offense has really struggled because of it. Now, Lugo, I don't think he can bring you the ceiling that Gray can have. Have we seen it this season? Yes, it's baseball. It's going to happen. I'm not saying it's not possible. But I think when we're looking for like what is the more probable situation, I think that Lugo is more of the floor play. He's going to go out there. He's going to get you 5 to 6 strikeouts, especially against this Detroit side, and just kind of work his way through. I don't really like the price tag of 9.4 on a guy who barely strikes out more than 20% of guys. But when you're looking at the matchup and the rest of the pitchers on the board, I think he's a fine play. And then Imanaga is just right in the middle of both of those guys with Gray and Lugo. Going into the mid-tier, Morton and Lively. No interest in Lively personally, especially going up against Baltimore. Lively, very low strikeout pitcher, and a righty facing off against the crazy left-handed stud lineup of Baltimore. Just no interest because of that. Morton, I expect him to be fairly popular here tonight, 8.8K. If you've watched these videos all season long, or even just caught a handful of the Charlie Morton videos, you know my feelings on him, in that he's just kind of he's a pitcher. Like, he goes out there, he's going to do okay. He's never going to like blow your socks off. And that's just kind of what he does. He's going to go out there, he's going to get you 5 strikeouts for 6 innings, allow 2 to 3 earned runs against, and that's just kind of it. So he's facing off against Miami. We were really high on Miami, or really high on Taj Bradley facing off against Miami yesterday. Didn't go so well. But hey, again, that's baseball. I still think that people are going to be flocking towards Morton here tonight. We're going to be picking on this Miami lineup throughout the remainder of the season. Losing Jazz, losing De La Cruz, losing Bell. Like, this lineup was already weak, and it just got significantly weaker. It's going to happen that Miami's going to have those games, but at the same time, no, we're going to go out, we're going to pick on them. I think Morton's going to see quite a bit of heftier ownership, especially in those cash games. After that, Feltner is the only guy that I would truly have interest in. Something happened recently, and he's been looking really solid. The strikeout rate is up. Command, still a big issue. But when we're looking at a guy with this kind of strikeout rate and only 6K in a good matchup against a weaker offense, certainly going to have interest in that, especially when there are such limited options on the board. So this is kind of what the sheet looks like in terms of the pitching. Mentioned I ranked him Gray, Imanaga, Lugo. Morton, really the only guy in the mid-tier that I have interest in. And then Feltner, and I think it's like a gap. And then Meyer and Montero. I almost don't even have interest in Montero, you could even put him over here in the fade category. But I could see a case where if you're really, really, really hurting on salary and you want somebody that's a sub 6K, I could understand it. So heading towards the bats, Baltimore, Cleveland, Kansas City. I think that's like your big three trio of the bats everybody's going to be wanting on the board. And then Atlanta, you could also kind of link up there as well, just because, I mean, their offense is, I can't remember the rankings were, but these are the top 4 implied run total teams as well. But Atlanta is up there. I think they might be the second or the third highest implied run total on the board. They're just so expensive, and they do strike out quite a bit, but they are just so expensive. It's tougher to get them into your lineup, especially if you're jamming in, 2 of these higher salary tier pitchers. Thankfully, there's nobody that's 10K and above, but regardless, it's still tough to get like a major stack of Atlanta in that regard. So let's start over here with Baltimore. Already talked about how, Lively doesn't strike out many guys, right-handed pitcher. So just targeting a lot of the lefties, and Baltimore has a ton of lefties. First guy we got to, talk about is Jackson Holliday. He got called up by the club yesterday, hit a grand slam, his first home run as an MLB player. So that's awesome. That's super special. 3K, I could see him being very popular here as like a nice value play at second base. But, I mean, even guys like Mullins and Kauser, O'Hearn, Santander, Henderson, like their lineup is just loaded, star-studded, and they're affordable as well, especially if you're looking down here at Holiday at 3K and Mullins at 3.6 and Kauser is only 4K. Like, they're very affordable. It is going to be the most owned. These are the most owned players on the board here tonight. On the other side of that game, I do like Cleveland facing off against Rogers. I think it's going to be Rogers. DK thinks it's going to be Rogers. MLB.com is still to be determined. I guess they want confirmation that it's going to be him. But he was just traded over to Baltimore. I still think that Baltimore significantly lost out on this trade, but it is what it is. So Rogers really struggles against righties. Cleveland, we got to mention that Lane Thomas is now in their lineup. He was traded at the deadline to them, a lower strikeout guy who has upside. So Thomas, Jose Ramirez is certainly in there, but they also have guys who are very affordable, just like Baltimore. Guys like Angel Martinez and Noel. Kenzie Noel. Awesome name. Love it. But you can quickly see that salary is not going to be too much of an issue unless you're jamming in the bats of Atlanta, where you're looking at guys at 5'8", 5'1", 5'4", 5'. They don't have as much of the value that we're looking for that we do have with guys from Baltimore and Cleveland. The other team that really stands out, and they're a little bit more cheap. Well, I guess they have cheap options, but I guess Baltimore and Cleveland have cheap options as well. But it is going to be Kansas City facing off against Montero. I do have the splits for Montero. I just wanted to bring him up here. So he is a reverse splits pitcher. Montero is a righty, but right-handed bats hit him a lot better. So against lefties are hitting 272 against him. That's still good. Like, he's not a great pitcher. So lefties still hit 272 against him, but righties hit 308 this season. And then when we're looking at like home runs and extra base hits, righties have 2 times as many extra base hits against him as the lefties do in a significantly fewer at bats. So lineups, against Montero, just kind of throw out all the lefties to get the platoon splits, but the righties significantly have better numbers. And when you're looking at like the top bats of Kansas City, you got Bobby Witt, Perez, like Garcia. These are the right-handed bats. So I really do like them from that standpoint. Furman could be in the lineup here tonight at catcher. So 3.3K, he's nice and affordable. But even guys like Renfroe at 3.6, they're going to bring the right-handed power and upside that you're really looking for. So I think after those 4 teams, there's just a big gap in everybody else. Leverage stacks, you got Chicago going up against Gray. We mentioned how the Cubs offense has really struggled, but Gray has also really struggled. So he's relying on those strikeout rates to get him out of jams because, I mean, we saw the logs. He's allowing 3, 4, 5 earned runs every single start and allowing 7, 8, 9 hits against every single start. So that can certainly get away from you real quick. So I think if he's going to be popular, Chicago could be a nice leverage stack. Everybody else is just kind of like one-offs and nothing to get too excited about. I definitely think that consolidating your bats to these 4 teams is going to be the way to go. So hopefully this was able to guide you in the right direction. Good luck in all of your contests tonight. And Mega Ruler, he will be back tomorrow for the Friday main slate. So come back and check him out. And then come join us here at FSi DFS. The NFL preseason begins tonight. We will have cores for that. So all the link to our website is in the description below, fsidfs.com. If you want to come hang, we'd love to have you. See ya.